Sarah had always enjoyed the mornings when the house was quiet. The sunlight spilling softly through the kitchen windows and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the room. Today was no different, though there was a faint sense of unease that lingered at the edges of her mind. Her son Ethan had left for school early, rushing to catch the bus, and she had been left alone with her thoughts. The tranquility of the morning was comforting, but it also made her hyper-aware of the passing time and the subtle ways life had shifted around her. She sipped her coffee slowly, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator, and let herself relax just enough to enjoy the moment. The knock at the door was sudden, breaking the silence. Sarah's brow furrowed slightly. Ethan's friend, Alex, had promised to come by later in the afternoon to collect a few school supplies he had left the previous day. She hadn't expected him so early. Cautiously, she moved to the door and opened it. Alex stood there, slightly out of breath, holding a small stack of papers. His bright blue eyes were apologetic, and there was a hint of embarrassment in his expression. "Hi, Mrs. Carter," he said softly. "I forgot my project notes yesterday. I thought I'd grab them before school." Sarah stepped aside, motioning for him to come in. "Of course, Alex, come on in." He moved past her, careful not to knock over anything in the kitchen. There was a strange energy about him, something she couldn't quite put into words. He had always been polite, friendly, and respectful, but this morning there was an unusual warmth in his presence. As he bent over the counter to gather his notes, Sarah noticed the way his focus and energy seemed genuine. How his attention lingered just slightly longer than necessary on her. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it sparked a flutter of curiosity inside her. It's an unexpected thrill that she hadn't felt in years. "Thanks for letting me grab these," he said, straightening up. His voice was calm, polite, yet carried a kind of sincerity that caught her off guard. "I didn't mean to come so early." "No problem at all," Sarah replied, smiling. "I'm glad you came by." She felt a strange mix of emotions: excitement, curiosity, and the sudden awareness that this small, ordinary visit was making her feel unusually alive. Alex looked around, noticing a small stack of magazines on the counter. "I didn't get to finish this part of the project yesterday. Mind if I ask a few questions?" he said. There was nothing inappropriate in his tone, just the innocent curiosity of a teenager trying to complete an assignment. Yet the way he asked, with polite attentiveness and a hint of eagerness, made Sarah feel an unexpected connection. She nodded, gesturing for him to sit at the small kitchen table as they went through the project. The conversation gradually moved beyond schoolwork. Sarah asked about his weekend, his interests, and the things he enjoyed doing with friends. Alex responded enthusiastically, sharing details about his hobbies, the new movie he had seen, and even minor stories about his family. There was laughter in the room, small bursts of shared humor that made the morning feel lighter and more vibrant than it had in a long time. Sarah noticed that the energy between them was different from typical adult-teen interactions. There was a sense of comfort, a rhythm to the conversation that felt unusually natural. Alex's attention was focused, but warm and sincere, and Sarah found herself listening in a way she hadn't experienced for years. It wasn't romantic or inappropriate, at least not in any overt sense, but there was a thrill in the connection or rush of awareness that she had been craving: subtlety, attention, and genuine engagement. The conversation shifted to movies and favorite books. Alex's face lit up as he described the plot twists and the characters he had enjoyed. Sarah laughed softly at his vivid explanations, surprised at how animated and passionate he became when talking about something he loved. She realized that his energy was contagious, lifting the room in a way that made her feel both joyful and reflective. Her mind wandered briefly to her own hobbies, the things she had set aside for years, and she found herself thinking about the small pleasures that had been neglected in the routine of everyday life. As they talked, Sarah became aware of the gentle rhythm of his voice, the way he seemed genuinely curious about her thoughts on the movie, on life, and on the small details of everyday experience. She felt a stirring of excitement, a sense that these interactions, though ordinary, had become unexpectedly thrilling. There was a soft tension in the air, not romantic or inappropriate, but emotional, a recognition of connection. Mutual attention and shared understanding, double quotes, Mrs. Carter. Do you think the project is ready to submit? Alex asked suddenly, breaking her reverie. His question was practical, but the tone carried an innocent eagerness that drew her attention back to the present. She smiled, adjusting the papers on the table. I think it's great, Alex. You did a wonderful job. Just make sure everything is neat, and you'll be fine. He nodded, packing his things carefully. For a moment, he hesitated at the door, then turned to her with a small, thoughtful expression. Thanks for helping me. I really appreciate it. The sincerity of his words struck her. There was no hidden meaning, no inappropriate undertones, just pure gratitude. Yet it made Sarah's heart beat a little faster. She realized that the thrill she felt wasn't about romance. It was about being seen, appreciated, and engaged in a meaningful way. The interaction, simple and respectful, had awakened emotions that she hadn't fully acknowledged in years. A mix of joy, curiosity, and the subtle thrill of connection before he left. She suggested, almost impulsively, "Hey, if you want, maybe you can tell me more about that movie later. I'd love to hear your take on it." Alex's eyes widened slightly. Then he nodded with a smile. "Sure, I'd like that." The ease of the agreement, the shared anticipation of another conversation, made her feel light and animated in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. After he left, Sarah stood by the door for a moment, watching him walk down the sidewalk. She felt a strange mixture of emotions: guilt for the thrill she had felt, excitement for the connection, and curiosity about what might happen next. The morning had begun like any other, but it ended with a subtle, emotional charge that left her mind buzzing with possibilities. She poured herself another cup of coffee. Sitting down by the window and reflecting on the encounter, Sarah realized that the feelings she had experienced were not unusual or shameful. They were simply human. The attention, laughter, and mutual understanding had awakened something dormant within her, a sense of vitality, appreciation, and emotional thrill. She knew she needed to be careful to respect boundaries and maintain propriety. Yet she also acknowledged that these moments of connection could be transformative, offering joy and emotional engagement in unexpected ways. By mid-morning, she was fully aware that her thoughts kept drifting back to Alex the way he had spoken, the warmth in his presence, and the excitement of their shared conversation. It wasn't a desire for romance, but a recognition of the subtle human need for attention, validation, and emotional exchange. She reminded herself to remain grounded, to nurture these feelings in safe, ethical ways, and to continue appreciating the thrill as a reflection of her own vitality rather than any inappropriate attachment. The rest of the day promised routine chores, errands, and the usual responsibilities. But the memory of the morning lingered. Every time she glanced at the door or heard a faint knock, her heart skipped a beat in anticipation. She realized that emotional connection, platonic, respectful, and genuine, could be surprisingly exhilarating. A reminder that life's small moments often held the most profound impact by the evening. Sarah reflected on the day with a mix of joy and introspection. She knew that tomorrow might bring another visit, another conversation, or perhaps a completely ordinary day. Yet the subtle thrill of connection had left an indelible mark, a gentle reminder that even in routine life, unexpected moments could awaken feelings of excitement, appreciation, and human warmth. As she turned off the lights for the night, Sarah acknowledged the lesson quietly. Life's small, respectful, and meaningful interactions could provide joy and emotional stimulation without crossing any boundaries. She felt grateful for the morning, for the conversation, for the laughter, and for the realization that thrill and connection did not always need to be complicated. They could be simple, pure, and profoundly human. The next morning, Sarah awoke to the soft light spilling through her bedroom window, feeling an unusual sense of anticipation. She had been thinking about yesterday's visit from Alex more than she had expected, replaying his laughter, his polite attentiveness, and the subtle warmth that seemed to radiate from his presence. It was curious how a simple school-related visit could leave such a lasting impression. She poured herself a cup of coffee, trying to shake off the flutter in her chest. reminding herself that Alex was her son's friend and that boundaries were important. Yet despite her resolve, she couldn't deny the small thrill she felt, the excitement of human connection. The sense of being seen and appreciated in a way that she hadn't felt in a long time. Later that day, she received a text from Alex asking for clarification on one of the project's sections. She smiled, realizing he remembered the conversation from yesterday and that he trusted her enough to reach out. Typing a quick reply, she explained the part clearly and added a bit of encouragement. Soon, a brief exchange turned into a longer conversation, moving beyond homework into discussions about movies, hobbies, and small life stories. Each response she received carried a sincerity that made her feel appreciated and acknowledged. The thrill of being engaged in such a thoughtful dialogue was surprisingly exhilarating by mid-morning. Alex arrived at her house again, this time carrying a backpack full of project materials. He looked slightly anxious, but as soon as he entered the kitchen, his nervous energy seemed to ease. "Morning, Mrs. Carter. Hope it's a good time," he said politely. She smiled, gesturing for him to sit at the table. "Of course, Alex, come in. Let's go over it together." As they worked, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They joked about minor mistakes in the project, shared personal anecdotes, and discussed things as simple as favorite snacks and weekend plans. Sarah found herself genuinely laughing at Alex's animated storytelling, feeling light and invigorated in a way she hadn't felt for months. There was a curious energy in the room, a warmth that stemmed not from romance, but from mutual attention, understanding, and laughter. She realized that the thrill she was experiencing wasn't tied to any inappropriate feelings, but was rooted in connection, attention, and shared moments of joy. Ethan called from soccer practice, breaking their discussion temporarily. Sarah excused herself, but Alex remained polite and patient. "Take your time," he said, glancing at her with a gentle smile. Sarah felt a soft wave of warmth in response, recognizing how natural and respectful his demeanor was. When she returned, the conversation picked up seamlessly, moving from project details to shared opinions on the latest school events. Sarah was struck by the ease with which Alex listened and responded, always thoughtful and considerate, creating a rare and meaningful exchange. As the afternoon wore on, Sarah became more aware of the subtle ways in which Alex's presence affected her mood. There was an emotional thrill in the attention, the laughter, and the genuine connection. She felt seen and appreciated, not in a superficial way, but as a person with experiences, thoughts, and perspectives worth hearing. Alex, for his part, seemed attuned to this dynamic, engaging with warmth, respect, and genuine curiosity. Their interaction was entirely appropriate. Yet the energy in the room was undeniably exciting. Gentle, emotional rush that left Sarah feeling more alive and alert. At one point, Alex paused and looked at her thoughtfully. "You're really good at explaining things," he said softly. "It makes it easier to understand." Sarah smiled, feeling a flicker of pride and surprise. She had never thought of herself as particularly inspiring to teenagers. But in this moment, she realized that her guidance and attention had meaning. It wasn't about ego, it was about human connection, about the small ways one can make a difference in someone else's life, and how that can create unexpected joy and emotional resonance. As they finished reviewing the last sections of the project, Sarah suggested a brief break. They moved to the living room where the sunlight poured through the large windows, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. Alex sat across from her, relaxed now, and began talking about his favorite books, movies, and even minor life frustrations. Sarah listened attentively, responding with empathy and encouragement. She felt herself emotionally engaged, excited by the candidness of the conversation, and grateful for the opportunity to connect in such a meaningful way. The emotional energy in the room was palpable, though completely appropriate. Sarah recognized the subtle thrill as a reflection of her own need for connection, appreciation, and engagement. Alex's presence, his polite enthusiasm, and the genuine nature of his attention had awakened a part of her that had been dormant: her joy in conversation, her delight in humor, and her appreciation for shared experiences. Time seemed to pass quickly, and soon it was late afternoon. Ethan would be home soon from soccer practice, and Sarah knew their conversation needed to end. She helped Alex gather his things and reminded him to rest and focus on his project. He paused at the door, giving her a thoughtful look. "Thanks for everything, Mrs. Carter. I really appreciate it," he said sincerely. The simplicity and sincerity of his words struck her again. She realized that the thrill she had experienced throughout the day was not inappropriate, but a reminder of human connection, the joy of being seen and appreciated, and the emotional energy that can come from meaningful interactions. She smiled, replying warmly, "You're welcome, Alex. I'm glad I could help." "You're doing great." After he left, Sarah walked back to the kitchen, feeling a mixture of fulfillment and introspection. She poured herself another cup of tea, sitting by the window and reflecting on the day. The interactions had been thrilling emotionally, not romantically, and she recognized the importance of boundaries. Yet the excitement and warmth she felt were undeniable. She felt alive, engaged, and deeply aware of the subtle joys in her life: laughter, conversation, shared stories, and the feeling of being appreciated. That evening, Sarah found herself thinking about Alex repeatedly. It wasn't infatuation, it was recognition of a unique emotional experience, a thrill that came from connection and attention. She understood that this was a healthy, natural response to meaningful engagement, and she resolved to approach the next encounter with awareness, boundaries, and appreciation for the human connection itself. Over the next few days, their conversations continued through text and brief visits. Each interaction reinforced the same subtle thrill: laughter, understanding, and shared experiences that brought joy and emotional stimulation. Sarah realized that the excitement she felt wasn't about crossing any lines, but about rediscovering the value of attentive, sincere connection with another person. She began reflecting on her life and her relationships, realizing that moments like these could be profoundly fulfilling without compromising her integrity or family responsibilities. The emotional thrill she experienced was a reminder of her own vitality, a spark that made her feel more alive, aware, and appreciative of life's small joys. One afternoon, after completing the project entirely, Sarah invited Alex to join Ethan for a quick snack. They sat together, talking casually about school, hobbies, and future plans. There was laughter, quiet reflection, and genuine engagement. Sarah observed the emotional energy between them and recognized that it was meaningful, safe, and entirely appropriate. The thrill was real, yet it was rooted in emotional connection, humor, and shared understanding, not anything inappropriate. By the end of the visit, Sarah felt fulfilled and energized. She realized that emotional thrills, attention, and appreciation could be deeply moving, transformative, and positive when handled with awareness and respect. She reflected on the lessons she had learned. Human connection could create excitement and joy without crossing ethical boundaries, and moments of sincere engagement could be surprisingly thrilling and impactful. As she cleaned up the kitchen and prepared for the evening, Sarah felt a sense of calm and contentment. She knew that tomorrow might bring another conversation, another moment of shared laughter, or simply a routine day. Yet the emotional thrill she had experienced would remain with her as a reminder of the joy and fulfillment that come from genuine human connection. The following morning, Sarah awoke with a quiet sense of anticipation. Yesterday's encounters with Alex had left a subtle imprint on her mind, a gentle emotional buzz she could neither dismiss nor fully explain. She knew it wasn't romantic in any inappropriate way. The thrill she felt came from attention, connection, and the warmth of shared moments. Yet she could not deny how alive the interactions had made her feel. As she sipped her coffee and watched sunlight spill across the kitchen counter, she reflected on how easily Alex's presence had shifted her mood and perspective. Life had felt ordinary, predictable, even a little monotonous, until the simple act of conversation reminded her of how vibrant moments of human connection could be. By late morning, Alex arrived again, holding the completed sections of his school project. He looked slightly nervous, but that nervousness was replaced quickly by his usual polite warmth as Sarah greeted him. "Morning, Mrs. Carter," he said, offering a small smile. "I finished the work you helped me with yesterday. Could you take a look?" "Of course, Alex. "Let's see what you've got," Sarah replied, motioning for him to sit at the table. The house felt brighter with him there, the air charged with subtle energy that came from meaningful conversation. As they went through the work, their discussion moved naturally, flowing beyond corrections and edits. They spoke about movies, weekend plans, and minor school events, exchanging laughs and thoughtful comments with ease. Sarah noticed how naturally engaging he had become, how his presence encouraged her to feel lighter, more expressive, and more fully alive in ways she hadn't anticipated as they continued. Sarah reflected on the unusual thrill she felt. It wasn't about romance or physical attraction. It was about being appreciated and understood. Alex listened attentively, responded thoughtfully, and brought a genuine curiosity to their interactions. This emotional engagement stirred something in Sarah's sense of being valued, acknowledged, and seen beyond her daily roles as a mother and homemaker. The sensation was exhilarating, yet entirely appropriate. A reminder that emotional connection alone could produce profound fulfillment at one point. Alex paused while reviewing a section of his work. "You know, Mrs. Carter, you really make it easy to understand this stuff," he said softly. The words weren't grandiose, but the sincerity in his tone resonated deeply with her. She smiled, feeling a warm rush of pride and delight. "I'm glad I could help." "Alex, you've done a fantastic job yourself," she replied. The exchange was simple, yet it reinforced the subtle thrill, the joy of guiding, mentoring, and being appreciated in return after they finished reviewing the project. Sarah suggested they take a break and move to the living room. Sunlight poured through the windows, casting a golden glow across the room. Alex sat across from her, relaxed now, talking about his hobbies, his favorite books, and the small frustrations of teenage life. Sarah listened, offering empathy, encouragement, and light humor. The conversation was entirely platonic, yet the emotional energy was undeniable. She felt a gentle rush of excitement, a recognition of the subtle joy that comes from meaningful human interaction. Throughout the afternoon, Sarah observed herself closely, aware of the thrill but also mindful of the boundaries. She understood that the emotional connection was a natural and healthy part of life, not something to be guilty about. The attention, engagement, and shared laughter provided her with a sense of vitality she hadn't experienced in months, perhaps even years. It reminded her that life's ordinary moments could be extraordinary when shared with someone genuinely attentive and caring. By late afternoon, Ethan returned from soccer practice and Sarah quickly shifted her attention to him. Alex excused himself politely, gathering his things and thanking her once again for her help. "I really appreciate all of this, Mrs. Carter," he said. His words were simple, yet the sincerity behind them brought a smile to her face and a warmth to her heart. She waved as he left, noticing the lingering glow of happiness and fulfillment his presence had left behind. After Alex's departure, Sarah took a moment to reflect. She realized that the thrill she had experienced was rooted in human connection, appreciation, and shared joy, rather than anything inappropriate. She felt grateful for the experience, recognizing how small interactions could create emotional richness in life. The awareness brought a sense of clarity, genuine engagement, even in everyday moments could awaken joy, excitement, and a renewed appreciation for life without crossing ethical or personal boundaries. Over the next several days, the pattern continued. Alex visited occasionally, and each time the interactions were meaningful, engaging, and entirely appropriate. Sarah learned to embrace the subtle thrills that came from shared laughter, thoughtful conversation, and mutual appreciation. She noticed that these moments reminded her of her own strengths, her ability to connect with others, and the importance of listening, guiding, and understanding. It was an emotional education as much as a social one, learning that small gestures and sincere attention could have a profound impact on both herself and the people she engaged with. One afternoon, after helping Alex finish a final section of his project, Sarah invited him to sit for a quick snack. They chatted casually, discussing minor school topics, future plans, and the lighthearted struggles of everyday life. Sarah was acutely aware of how much joy these moments brought her. She realized that the emotional thrill she experienced was not fleeting, but rather a reflection of human needs to connect, to be appreciated, and to feel engaged. These needs were universal, and the satisfaction she felt was a natural consequence of fulfilling them in a safe, ethical, and respectful way as the sun began to set. Casting a soft orange glow across the living room, Sarah felt a profound sense of contentment. The emotional energy in the house was warm and fulfilling, a testament to the beauty of meaningful connection. She recognized that while Alex was her son's friend and her engagement with him needed to remain platonic, the thrill she felt was an important reminder of her own vitality and capacity for joy. That evening, as she prepared dinner and tidied the kitchen, Sarah reflected on the lessons she had learned. Emotional thrills, those feelings of excitement, attention, and appreciation, could exist safely and appropriately. They could enhance life, providing joy and fulfillment without compromising personal integrity or ethical boundaries. She smiled quietly to herself, grateful for the unexpected lesson and the reminder that meaningful human interactions, even simple ones, could have a lasting and positive impact. Later, as she settled into the living room with a cup of tea, Sarah considered how much she had changed over the past few days. The subtle thrill she felt was not just about Alex, it was about herself, her awareness, and her ability to embrace joy in small, respectful ways. She realized that life's richness often came from these quiet, meaningful moments: laughter shared, stories exchanged, guidance offered, and sincere appreciation given and received. As she closed her eyes for a moment, she acknowledged the full extent of her emotional growth. She had learned to embrace excitement and connection without guilt, to recognize the power of attention and appreciation, and to understand that thrill did not need to be inappropriate to be meaningful. These were lessons about empathy, human interaction, and the beauty of subtle joy in everyday life. The next day promised routine errands, school schedules, and household responsibilities. Yet Sarah felt equipped to face it with renewed energy. She had discovered the delicate balance of thrill, connection, and ethical boundaries, of balance that allowed her to experience life fully while maintaining propriety. She felt grateful for the interactions with Alex, not because of any romantic or inappropriate feelings, but because they reminded her of the joy inherent in human engagement and the profound impact of sincere attention and shared experiences. By the end of the week, Sarah reflected on the journey she had experienced over a few short days. She realized that the thrill, the laughter, and the warmth she had felt were all part of the human experience, perfectly normal and profoundly important. It was a lesson in emotional intelligence, in understanding oneself, and in appreciating the subtle joys that life could offer. The story concluded not with drama, scandal, or conflict, but with reflection and emotional maturity. Sarah had learned to embrace thrill as a positive force, a reminder of vitality, engagement, and human connection. She understood that meaningful interactions could invigorate life, create emotional richness, and remind one of the beauty of shared understanding, laughter, and attention. The experiences with Alex had been transformative in their simplicity, teaching her to cherish the small, ordinary moments that often held the most extraordinary emotional value. As Sarah prepared for bed that evening, she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Life, she realized, was filled with opportunities for connection, joy, and emotional engagement, opportunities that could be safely explored and appreciated without crossing personal or ethical boundaries. She drifted to sleep with a sense of peace, knowing that the thrill she had experienced was a celebration of human connection, attention, and the enduring power of shared understanding.